Season 3 of The Fairer Cents is sponsored by FreshBooks, the cloud accounting software for freelancers that's the easiest possible way to send invoices and stay on top of your accounting. Stay tuned for info on how you can get a free 30-day trial while supporting the show. Welcome to The Fairer Cents.
With me, Tanya.
And me, Kara.
Women, money, and the fight to break even.
Because we give a shit. And you should too. Today, a little help from our friends and their favorite financial insights.
Hey, Kara.
Hey, Tanya.
Today we're here to, I think, go a little bit more granular than we often do on the show. What we tend to talk about is something that I've found myself explaining to people this way, which is women, for example, are told to negotiate for more, ask for more money. And that's become like very ubiquitous advice that women are given, which in a way implies that if you aren't getting paid as much as men, it's your fault. You must not have asked for it. When in reality, research now tells us that women are asking for more just as often as men are, but that we are less likely to actually get that money. And so, Kara, you and I, in doing this show, don't want to keep repeating advice that may or may not actually work for women. We want to look at, well, why is it that women aren't getting more when they're asking for more? And what is it that we can all do about that? But I think the flip side of that is that could potentially give the impression that there's nothing any of us on an individual level can actually do to improve our finances because there's so much systemic stuff out there. And of course, that's not true. There's a lot that we can do on our own. And so that's what we want to talk about today.
Yeah, I definitely think some of our naysayers out there are all, oh, they just point out problems and never talk about how you can like bootstrap it, blah, 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 blah. Do you like my distractor, my naysayer voice? Oh my God.
I was like, please keep using that voice.
That is, no one talks like that. And I apologize for doing that to all of your ears. But yes, often we do talk in very big picture terms. We talk about the society and the systems that we live in. And today, I think it is really important to shed some light on the ways that we can make individual decisions that can change our own finances and our own lives. Because, of course, you and I both believe that there is a lot that we can change in our own lives that is in our own control. And so we're going to dive into that today.
Just little sidebar with your voice that reminded me of something that always drives me crazy. Mark and I watch a lot of stand-up comedy. And in stand-up, which is mostly dudes, mostly white dudes, they so often will do this voice when imitating women that is exactly the same voice they use for gay men. And, it'll have this little edge to it of like, I can't even do it well. I bet you can do it better. But it's so frustrating to me because it both belittles women and belittles gay men, or sort of like indicates that anything that isn't hyper masculine is to be scoffed at or is ridiculous. And, just another example of toxic masculinity at work.
Oh, I completely agree, which will shock no one. It's so funny. Just as another side note on the voice thing is obviously T-Bone has been on the show. He has a very deep voice. And anytime I try to imitate him, it comes out like this. But it's just hard for my voice to get down like that. I'm like, oh, I'm T-Bone. He's always like, I don't sound anything like that. I'm like, that's just men, baby. Deal with it.
It sounds so disaffected.
I know. It's so ridiculous. It's my bro voice. That's what I think of it as.
Yeah. It's very effective as like a belittling two bros kind of thing.
But today is not about belittling bros. Let's bring it back.
It is not at all. Not at all. No, today we are getting advice from some of our friends of the podcast, friends of our blogs, friends in real life, some women who have some really great tips to share with us and with all of you about how we can improve our finances.
Yes, if there's one thing that we really do strive to do on this show, it's to incorporate as many voices and perspectives into the financial conversation as possible. So while we are jazzed to share with you some of the ways that we handle our finances and some of our tips, we also wanted to make sure that we were able to speak to other people's financial experiences and circumstances. Not everyone is early retired like you, Tanya, and not everyone is a scrappy startup like me. So we wanted to cover a lot of ground. We called in our friends, and they responded beautifully.
Hi, this is Sarah Lee Kane from Beyond the Dollar. My number one money tip is before you buy something or make any financial decision is to pause and ask yourself, what do I expect out of this transaction? So think of, is it going to help you feel better? Is it based on an ego? Are you trying to keep up with the Joneses? Like, what is the reason? And when you pause and find the answer, it's much easier to make a decision from a place that will honor you and your values.
First of all, I love Sarah. We have roomed together at 2 FinCons, so shout out my FinCon roomie. And I also really, really love this piece of advice. You hear versions of it a lot, like put something in your cart and then wait 48 hours to see if you really want it. But she really goes another level and asks, what do I expect from this? What will this bring to my life? What is the reason that I want it? Which I think we can all really benefit from asking in a couple different areas of our lives, but definitely with our money.
Okay, so confession here. Even though I spend a lot of time talking to people about how to figure out what you truly value in life and to get rid of spending that doesn't actually add happiness to your life or make your life better in some way, I will just say the way that Sarah phrased this was kind of mind-blowing to me. Like, not in the overused, like, oh my God, you just blew my mind, bro, way. But I sat here and went, huh, like, yeah, I've never thought to frame the question that way before. So I really love that. I think it's so true of what do I expect to get out of this transaction? I think, honestly, that's a great question that we should all ask in all of life, not just with money, but especially for money. I think that's really, really true because even those of us who have saved a lot of money and have achieved big financial goals, like early retirement, for example, are still victim to this, like, oh, if I buy this pen, it's going to make me like a better writer. It's why every writer I know has like 30,000 notebooks, because this is going to be the notebook that's going to like transform your writing. And so, yeah, I think stepping back and asking that question, that to me really belongs on that list, in addition to the keep stuff in your cart for 48 hours or, whatever else it might be that might slow your roll a little bit.
I'm Bobby Rebell, host of the Financial Grown Up podcast and co-host of the Money in the Morning podcast. I want us to stop tolerating mansplaining in negotiations. Just this week, in a negotiation, a client who happened to be a man responded via email to my request to raise my rates after 2 years of no change by telling me, as a father of 4 daughters, and having a woman as a business partner, he appreciated my position of getting my worth and, quote, being aggressive financially. Okay, guys, as a grown woman, there is no reason to compare me to his children, especially his female children, nor is the gender of his partner relevant. You guys got to recognize mansplaining. So I called him out on his BS. And if this happens to you, make sure you do it too.
I love Bobby so much. I love her podcast. I love her way of thinking about things and how she's not afraid to say things very directly. But we do have a phenomenon right now, in addition to just mansplaining, where like a lot of people who think they are good allies to women or are looking out for women because they think about their daughters are in fact infantilizing a lot of us. So I really want everyone who thinks this way to go back and listen to our episode number 24 of how men can advocate for women. Because it's not just about saying, oh, well, this is how I'd want my daughter to be received in the world. I mean, like, fine. If that's what it takes for you to have a little empathy for fellow humans, okay. But seriously, I think a lot of men need to do better. Be better.
Yeah. What I really liked about Bobby's tip is that it fits perfectly into our show because maybe on its face, it's not just like hard numbers, look at it. But this does affect so many women's lives where people kind of mansplain to you or they talk over you or they interrupt you. It's these microaggressions. And I loved that she was like, hey, get that out of here. My pay should be based on the work that I'm producing for you, not the fact that you have daughters. Like, that's cool, but not relevant. Thanks. So 2 thumbs up to Bobby and 2 thumbs up to all the ladies out there who are not tolerating mansplaining.
Hi folks, I'm Berna from Hey Berna, and let me tell you about my favorite financial tip. Did you know that a lot of banks let you nickname your bank accounts? Yes, nicknaming your bank accounts makes banking feel way more personal and way more fun. For example, my spending money is my fuck it fund. My bills are my adulting dollars. I'm saving for a trip to Africa, so I called that savings account Why Are You White? Shout out to Mean Girls. Not only does this keep your money brain organized, but do you know how fun it is to make customer service say stuff like, ma'am, are you referring to the deposit into your ratchetry account? Yeah, I am. Take back banking, make it fun, make it yours, nickname those accounts.
I love Berna, but she totally stole my tip. This was what I was going to use. But it is, I'm so glad she said it because it is so life-changing. I remember reading this on our friend Erin, who her Twitter handle is Broke Millennial. And I remember reading this on her Twitter page like 4 or 5 years ago and was like, oh my gosh, nicknames for savings accounts. That's so smart. It's a really good way to stay organized. It's a really great way to stay motivated when your savings account is France 2020. You're going to be like, cool, instead of account 8900421. So I really, really recommend this. I use this tip all the time in my coaching as well. So this is something I live by and I am constantly advocating for.
Yeah, and shout out Erin. Erin just put out her second book, which is called Broke Millennial Takes on Investing. And it is fantastic. If you know you should be investing, but you've been a little afraid of it or you don't feel like you know everything you need to know, I highly recommend her book. I think, honestly, even if you have been investing, it's a great resource. So check that out. Book plugs aside, I find the naming savings accounts, different things, to be really transformative. Or even if you don't actually name them physically, if you just think of them differently. A great example is my friend Colin, who has a podcast called How You Spend Your Days, which is about his debt payoff journey, which I recommend it. It's cool to follow along with him. But he recently had to pretty much empty out a savings account that he had to deal with some debt stuff. And he had mentally named that his emergency fund. And therefore, when he had to clean it out, he felt really bad. And I said to him, like, well, what if you think of that as your life happens fund and your emergency fund is separate and you work on building them both up? Like, then if you emptied out your life happens fund, would you feel bad or would you feel like that's exactly what it was for? Because it did help him move forward toward his financial goal of being debt free and not, it wasn't like he went out and blew the money on a trip to Vegas or something, which sometimes that can be valid also. And it was interesting talking that through. And he was like, oh yeah, actually, if I called it life happens, like I wouldn't have felt shitty about it. And so to me, that's also sort of the power of what we call things and the power of naming and the power of language is having an emergency fund and having a life happens fund, which is totally a Susie Orman idea. Shout out Susie, episode 21. Hey. But I think it can really help also just reframe how we think about our money and how we think about our own financial decisions in that framing.
Upgrade your usual kind of boring money date to a self-care fest. Create your playlist, do a full face of makeup, wear that random discarded bridesmaid's dress, surround yourself with roasted seaweed packets, take off your pants, whatever you got to do to make that moment about the happiest version of you. The more you associate your budgeting moment with joy, the more you'll feel positive feels about your money. We are simple ass creatures. Money care is self-care. Party people.
I love this tip so much. And this is something I've never done, but now I kind of want to. Like money party, of making it something fun to look forward to. I think, honestly, I think that's really a smart way to handle anything that you have any kind of negative emotion around but have to do. It's like, how can I reframe it in a way that makes it really fun and celebratory?
Yes. And I love that Berna gave us 2 tips. First of all, shout out, you are amazing for overachieving. She's also one of the most joyful people I've ever met. She has a wonderful presence. And I know that being jazzed about things is a way that she really tries to live her life. And when we take that lens and apply it to money, so many of us are afraid of money or intimidated by money or stressed out by money. So yeah, put on that face mask, turn up that music that makes you feel good, go into the quiet corner of your house where no one else can see you or hear you, and have some awesome money time. And really, really, like Berna says, transform it so that you're feeling joy and you associate money with joy. I mean, chef's kiss. She really said it so perfectly.
Mwah.
Yeah, perfect.
Hi, it's Penny from She Picks Up Pennies. My best piece of money advice is this. Your current financial state isn't where you'll be forever. You can always strategize to earn more, and you might also earn less at times. So that means it's really important to keep growing your aspirations and build your savings. And don't forget to enjoy the ride.
Penny is such a sweetheart. She is one of my favorite follows on Twitter. So if you're not following her, get after it. But I love this too, because this is such a hopeful tip. Your current money situation is not going to be your forever money situation. And she acknowledges that maybe it'll go down, but there's also such runway for improvement and growth and aspirations. And I love that, because I know personally when I was paying off my debt, or even before I started paying off my debt, I felt really trapped by my money. But here I sit 4 years later in a completely different financial reality and financial headspace. So I think really believing that just change is possible when it comes to your money is such a powerful money tip.
Oh, 100%. And for those who do want to follow Penny, we're going to have links to all of the folks who gave us tips today in the show notes. You can look there. But Penny in particular is at Picks Up Pennies on Twitter. Definitely recommend following her. She stays so positive with people who, honestly, like, I can't keep my cool around. People who love the bootstraps mentality. So yeah, shout out to her for being so positive. But I totally agree with this, that, you know, your financial state isn't permanent. And we've mentioned this before, but we first started talking about doing this podcast as not making it like the feminist economics podcast that it has become, but making it about being at different points in the journey. So my original idea that I proposed to you is to say, like, okay, think of us as like HGTV. You're the before, I'm the after. Like, let's talk about the differences. And because I do think that it's so easy to just look at someone's current state and think that that's how they've always been. And even within my own journey, I did a blog post about a year ago about how 10 years before I retired early, I had just broken even with my net worth. I had achieved zero, which was huge and really took a long time to get to. But to think that like I had always had all this money saved or had always been earning a lot of money at work, that just wasn't true. You know, I started out making $30,000 in Washington, D.C. and somehow having to pay rent and buy groceries. And I went into debt doing that. And so if you're just looking at like, where am I now, or where am I going to be next year or 2 years down the road, I think that that's really limiting your ability to dream big, because the truth is that money can really change very rapidly over the course of many years. It doesn't always feel rapid day to day, but often when you look back, that's when you can say, oh, wow, look how far I've come. And so I really encourage people to think that way of, don't look at like, okay, I have this goal and look how far I am from achieving it. Look at how far you've come. Look at what have you saved so far? What have you paid off so far? What have you achieved at work that is worth celebrating, instead of looking at what have I yet to achieve. I think that just focuses your mind in the wrong way. It puts you into sort of a scarcity mindset instead of abundance, which I know sounds very like The Secret, which we are not all about here. But I still think you can choose to focus on what you have accomplished versus what you haven't. And that's just a good way to keep yourself motivated instead of beating yourself up and putting yourself in the headspace of like, oh, I'm a failure because I haven't done X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, Just listening to you talk, I am remembering that in 2017, I wrote a blog post that I think was partially inspired by one of Penny's tweets. If I'm remembering correctly, she was engaging with this person, and the name of my blog post is I'm a finance professional and I have hella financial anxiety. And at the time, I really, really did. Bravely was in its first year. I was still working my catering side hustle. Making money with Bravely was still very much so a challenge. And now here I am, 2 years later, and I don't have that same financial anxiety. I definitely still have some, but I'm much calmer. And it's really, really been fascinating to watch that evolution happen as Bravely evolves as a business, as I evolve as a person. And my financial anxiety is so much less than where it was in just 2 years, let alone what a 10-year difference could make or a 20-year difference could make. So if you're out there in any kind of struggle, just know that change is real and it's coming for you. Running a business of one means you wear many hats: marketer, content creator, CEO, office custodian. There are many things that demand your attention, and you need all the assistance you can get.
That's why cloud accounting software FreshBooks is so cool. They take the work out of getting paid so you can focus on doing the work you need to keep your business running. With FreshBooks, you can create a customized invoice, track all your income, and link a business credit card to automatically track business spending.
FreshBooks makes it super simple to do your accounting. The website is clean and easy to understand, and it makes accounting one less thing that you need to worry about as a business owner.
Most accounting services come with lots of bells and whistles that you don't need as a freelancer, and FreshBooks cuts all of that out to make it as easy to use as possible. We've both used it and can attest to it being the easiest possible way to do your accounting, and maybe the prettiest.
Plus, FreshBooks has recently gotten into the events game, which I love, with their hashtag #IMakeALiving events around the US. They talk to freelancers and small business owners about how they make a living, which is something that we both think is pretty cool.
Head to freshbooks.com/TFC to claim your 30-day free trial and enter the fairer cents in the How Did You Hear About Us section. It's a win-win. You get something free while supporting the fairer cents. Join the 24 million people who've used FreshBooks already. That's freshbooks.com/TFC.
And so here it is, the moment you've all been waiting for. My tip. So thank you. Appropriate response. My tip is to get and stay financially organized. So many of us, when we're first starting out, like I said earlier, we feel intimidated or annoyed or frankly bored by our finances. But the most helpful thing you can do that lays the foundation for financial stability and financial growth is to understand where all your money is. So write out all your debts, write out all your assets, all your credit cards, all your bank accounts, and just see, okay, I've got 2 bank accounts here, I've got 2 credit cards, I've got 2 student loans, and I have my 401k. So you know where everything you own is. And as your money grows and changes over time, just keep an eye on that and add and detract to the information that's on the page. But first things first, you got to know what you're working with.
I completely love that, shockingly. Totally agree. For me, in my early 20s was when I had the most debt and also the least financial organization. I had a car that I financed at 100%. I had a bunch of credit card debt. I had a little bit of student loan debt. And I really just tried not to think about that stuff as much as possible. And it really was when I first built an Excel sheet where I listed all that stuff out and said, okay, here's the debt that I have. Here's what I'm trying to work down. Here's where I'm trying to save a little bit. That really was the beginning of my financial journey of getting things in order and getting to a much, much better place. And I will also just say one thing that's awesome about that is I did that Excel sheet back in, like 06 or 07. I can still look back at all those things. So I keep an Excel sheet that I update monthly, but I then save each version at the end of each year. And when a new year starts, I start a new version. I save it as a new file name. And so I can actually go back and look and see what my net worth was every year since 07. And that is just like an awesome thing that honestly, I want that joy for everyone, because being able to see how far you've come is one of those things that, again, like we talked about in the last tip, it just helps put your mind in a really positive frame, and focusing on your achievements versus what you have yet to achieve, I think helps you celebrate all of that stuff and feel motivated to keep going. And honestly, it's just a whole lot healthier than focusing on what you haven't done. And so, yeah, shout out to the organization, but also keeping good records over time so that you can celebrate those wins.
Yeah, it's honestly so awesome in the years that I have started keeping spreadsheets to go back, and particularly with my income, because I did start off so low, and to be like, oh, look, upward trend. Like it's really, really nice. It's also really nice. It kind of just gives you a chance. It's like a journal. It's just a financial journal. You get to kind of flash back to who you were when you were 26 or 30 or 35, and say, past self. Who were you? What were you about? Oh, yeah, I remember.
Totally. I should probably share a tip too, huh? The thing that I've found most helpful is to try to reframe how I think about money overall. So my tip is to create a money mission statement. If you are interested in reading more about this, it's the topic of chapter 3 in my book, Work Optional, but you do not have to read the book to get the benefit of this. So the analogy that I use in the book that I think is really apt is if you ask a vegetarian, hey, do you want a hamburger? That vegetarian doesn't have to stop and think about it and do some soul searching and use a bunch of willpower to say, well, no, I don't want the hamburger. It's like, no, I don't eat burgers. It's like an automatic decision. And there's something about creating a money mission statement that is like that. It's automating for yourself mentally a lot of the decisions that you would otherwise be faced with. So the example I give in the book is I, at a certain point, had to accept that I was not allowed to shop at Target. That going to Target, I love it so much. They have so many beautiful things that it didn't matter if I went in with only cash or with a list. I would still leave with stuff that I did not need because there was just so much stuff that was tempting. So I finally had to say, you know what? I just don't go to Target. And that is part of my money mission statement is like, okay, here are the types of stores that I go to. Here are the ones I do not set foot in. Like I'm not allowed to go to a mall to just shop. And I don't miss it. It's fine. But it's also about what that money is ultimately for. So for me, a big focus was achieving financial independence and not having to work for money anymore, making work something that I could do on my own terms. And so it was, I want to use my money to buy my freedom from having to go to work and to buy things that truly make me happier in life, like by traveling and going to nice restaurants a couple times a year, not as often as we used to. That's all tied up in it. But the goal for your money mission statement isn't to replicate what I said. Like if you can go to Target and not be tempted, then great. You don't have to even mention that. But it's about what are the things that are your triggers? What are the things that motivate you? What are the things that you want to automate so you can stop having to waste willpower on them? And what are ultimately the things that you want your money to do for you in the long term?
Yes, absolutely. It's about what am I doing now that is ultimately moving me towards my biggest goals? And how can I reframe my actions now that are in alignment with who I currently am, but with who I want to be and what I want to be doing? So even though we are financial experts, we are always willing to learn. We are all always learning out here. Always good to keep your nose to the grindstone, ear to the grindstone.
I think nose is the expression, but that is such a weird image. I don't know who came up with that one.
Yeah, what? That's a stretch. Let's move away from that. It's always good to stay learning. I always like to say it's important to learn more. Okay, well, this is getting crazy. Anyway,
now I can't stop picturing people grinding their noses off, which is like a horrifying image that seems like it belongs on Game of Thrones or something.
Yeah, it sounds like a real torture tactic. Like, I don't know why it's just keep plugging away there, Sonny. Like, why?
And at the end of it, you'll have no nose, but you will have done a lot of work.
I know. Oh my God. Very strange idiom. At any rate, if you have
I'm just going to sit over here and laugh, so you just keep going.
Perfect. If you have a favorite money tip or way that you organize or maximize your money, please email us. Let us know. We're thinking about doing a bonus episode this summer with more actionable financial tips, and we would love, love, love to share some of our listeners' tips.
Yeah, so send them to us. Our email is fairersense@gmail.com, and you can always tweet at us also at fairersense. And we have an Instagram account too, at fairersense. So feel free to send them via DM over there, or you can tag us in a tip, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, get in touch with us on the internet is the moral of the story. We are always around, addicted to the internet.
So we have one more episode left in this official season 3, and then we will likely have some bonus episodes trickling out as we usually do, some wrapping up the season, sharing more tips, and we'll be back, of course, with season 4 in the late summer. But we don't have season 4 completely planned out yet. So if you have thoughts for topics you'd like us to cover or guests you'd like us to have on, please send them our way. It's again, fairersense@gmail.com or @fairersense on Twitter and Instagram. You can also visit our website, leave comments on posts. That's thefairersense.com.
Yes, we always love hearing from you. Our inbox. Oh, did I say inbox? I did. I don't know why. Our inbox is a little more crowded these days than it used to be back in season 1 and season 2. So I do still strive to get back to every single email, but if it takes a while, please bear with me.
We've put on an autoresponder that tries to make that clear. I recently had to put an autoresponder on my blog email, and I will say I felt really crappy about it. It's very, very long. If you ever email me at my Our Next Life email, which is msonl@ournextlife.com, you will get the autoresponder. So feel free to send me a note if you just want to see it, but it's really long. I try to respond to questions that are the most common ones I receive. I also have a little bit of snark in there for people who like to say, oh, hey, you have depression, you should try electroconvulsive therapy. I'm like, fuck off.
Are people sending you emails being like, just a fun fact about your depression?
Oh, fully. And I've definitely gotten like 20 that are like, have you tried yoga? I'm like, I taught it for 10 years, but thank you. Yeah, no, I mean, this is just the plight of like being a woman with health. In our society today is you get all the unsolicited advice. But fortunately, that's not the bulk of what I get to the blog. But still, like I felt a lot of guilt putting an autoresponder on because it felt so impersonal. But I will say it has been transformative. So I think for anybody out there who gets a lot of email and you can't respond to it all, like no shame. Put an autoresponder in there, like be honest in it, be sincere. But otherwise, I mean, you got to do what you got to do. Like your inbox is where people are telling you what your to-do list should be instead of you getting to have your own to-do list. And I think you should claim that to-do list back. So that's bonus tip from Tanya.
Woo, that was a rallying call. I loved it. I'm like, yeah, take back the inbox.
I have seen a few people who are like probably in the tech bro camp, but a few people who have autoresponders that say, I only do email on Tuesdays. And so that's when I'll respond to you. And I'm like, that's amazing. I can't promise that or be that disciplined, and nor do I want to be that disciplined with my time. I'd rather kind of take each day and decide what I want to do. But still, I totally admire that. And I think if you can create any sort of limitations or boundaries and communicate them to people so you set the correct expectations, like you should. If you can do that, do it.
Definitely setting expectations. Game changer. I do that with T-Bone all the time. I set expectations like a mother fudger. Like for my birthday, I'm like, here's exactly what I want. Here's exactly what I want to do. And then he just executes. And I'm like, amazing. Like instead of waiting for him to like find the perfect gift and then be upset when he doesn't get me it and be like, you should know me enough to, it's like, we've been there, we've done that. All that does is result in me being upset when I could just be like, here's what I want you to get me. And then I get the thing and feel good about it.
Mark has even leveled up on that. Like now he'll just buy himself something and then be like, oh, hey, you bought me a bike for my birthday.
That's awesome.
I mean, it is and it isn't. There's a little bit where I'm like, I don't even get to like participate in the gift I gave you. You just bought it for yourself and told me in advance. Like, so yeah, it is possible to take that possibly too far.
Yeah, listen, this is a decade of marriage. You know, he's like, girl, we are past that. I'm just going to be out here riding my bike.
No, and it's true. If we flip that in reverse, if I was like looking for a very particular thing, it would take me much more time to explain to Mark like how he should find it and how to find the best deal than it would be to just like jump on it if I find it, you know? Like, so I get it. It's all good. It's just, it's funny. 10 years of marriage.
5 years of dating. This is where we are. Anyway, we've really taken a turn with this podcast ending.
Normally at this point, we're like, okay, let's say some funny little joke and get the end music rolling. But instead, we've thrown more advice in here because we just can't hold back.
We're so wise.
I feel like I'm undermining our credibility by when you say we're experts or we're so wise. I'm like, ha 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 ha.
Lols.
This is just proof, though. You can be an expert and you can also acknowledge that you don't know everything because that is the human condition. No one knows everything, except some people just like to pretend that they do, but they are deluding themselves.
I just rolled my eyes so hard. I wish this was a visual medium because that eye roll was one for the ages. Okay, well, until next time, stay rad.
Stay rad. The Fairer Scents are Kara Perez and me, Tanya Hester. Editing by me. Our theme song is by The Insider. All other music appears courtesy of the generous and mysterious Breakmaster Cylinder. If you need music to license for your podcast or other project, check them out at breakmastercylinder.bandcamp.com. You can always find me at ournextlife.com and Kara at bravelygo.co. I don't know. You got something?
Oh my gosh. We should just leave all of this in and let people know the truth behind the podcast.